Based on the 1995 film of the same name, Goldeneye is still remembered by players around the world as one of the best and most revolutionary games ever created. This video aims to cover all its relevant aspects to provide an overview of the gaming experience. Given the complexity of this analysis, the videos will be divided into the following themes: plot, graphics, gameplay, soundtrack, multiplayer mode, development, budget and performance, reception and awards, and final score. In this first video, we will cover the plot and graphics of the game. So without further introduction, let's get to the video! As in the film, the game narrates the efforts of British Secret Service agent James Bond in his quest to prevent a Soviet criminal syndicate from using the Goldeneye space weapon against London. Bond's journey begins during the time of the Soviet Union, in the year 1986, when the British Secret Service discovered that a Russian dam was serving as a shelter for the installation of destructive secret weapons. As a result, Bond and his partner Alec are sent to infiltrate the dam to plant bombs in its facilities, and thus destroy the aforementioned weapons. In the sequence of events, Alec is apparently killed by Colonel Ourumov, while James manages to escape in an airplane. 5 years later, Bond is sent to Severnaya, Russia, to investigate a possible Goldeneye satellite station. The same occurs 2 years later, when Bond is sent to Kyrgyzstan to investigate a silo where a missile test is taking place. The remaining stages of the game are set in the year 1995. It is here that a mysterious character named Janus appears in the plot. Bond is sent to Monte Carlo to infiltrate the frigate Lafayette, where he frees several hostages and plants a tracker on the pirate helicopter before Janus steals it. Following the helicopter's trail, Bond is sent once again to Severnaya, where he ends up imprisoned in the bunker stage. Here, Natalia Simonova, a programmer who refused to work for the mysterious Janus, makes her first appearance. The two manage to escape the bunker stage before Ourumov uses the Goldeneye against the underground complex facilities. Bond is now sent to St. Petersburg to meet the former KGB agent, Valentin Zhukovsky, to secure a meeting with Janus. Behind the statue of Lenin, Bond discovers that the man called Janus is actually his friend Alec, and that his death had been faked by Ourumov. Bond and Natalia manage to evade Alec, but end up imprisoned in a Soviet archive complex for interrogation. Bond escapes the interrogation, rescues Natalia, and speaks with the defense minister, Dmitry Mishkin, who had been investigating Ourumov's betrayal. Subsequently, Ourumov recaptures Natalia, forcing Bond into a chase through the streets of St. Petersburg. Bond passes through Janus's weapons depot and boards the armored train. On the train, Bond neutralizes Ourumov and rescues Natalia. From that same location, Janus and his ally, Xenia, flee to Cuba. Bond travels to the Caribbean, but his aircraft is shot down by forest artillery. Xenia appears in the forest and is neutralized by Bond. In the control stage, under Bond's escort, Natalia enters the central control of the Goldeneye satellite and manages to disrupt its transmissions and force its destruction in the Earth's atmosphere. With the intention of regaining control over the satellite, Alec flees through the caverns and reaches the control antenna. Bond pursues him, destroys the remaining control computers for the satellite, and on a platform, defeats Alec in a final shootout. The entire plot of the game revolves around the threat of the Goldeneye satellite, a space weapon capable of firing an electromagnetic pulse anywhere on the planet, disabling all electrical circuits within the pulse's range. The game's graphics were highly advanced for its time, rivaling or even surpassing the graphics seen on desktop computers. The game was highly praised for its wide variety of environments and maps. Unlike other first-person shooter games like Doom or Quake, which often feature maps with square and repetitive geometries, Goldeneye has maps with less linear geometries, bringing the game's visuals closer to real-world appearances. This can be clearly seen in the progression of the stages. Dam is an open-air stage that depicts a massive dam, but also has underground corridors. The exit from the completely enclosed facility is an open-air runway. In Severnaya, the opposite occurs. as it is an open-air stage that goes into the underground of another stage. The silo launch platform stage is enclosed, while the frigate stage is open and set at sea. This alternation between open and enclosed environments contributes to the perception that the scenarios are realistic and plausible. These images from a special edition of Brazil's Nintendo World magazine demonstrate how the game's maps are diverse and organic. Notice that each map has its own unique personality, bringing it closer to reality. It should also be noted that a team member released some sketches of the game's maps, as we can see in the following images. Some game environments like runway, surface, depot, and jungle feature a fog that partially covers the polygonal construction of the map at the vanishing point. In the surface stage, for example, the use of atmospheric fog combined with the game's native resolution makes the construction of the scenario imperceptible. Other stages like dam, bunker, and frigate make intelligent use of polygon culling to render these scenarios without fog. The vast majority of the game's stages have an impressive draw distance for the graphical standards of the time, and those that use fog do so in such a way that it is hardly noticeable. The Nintendo 64 is capable of rendering stretched polygons. The final part of the dam stage demonstrates how this capability of the console was crucial in creating expansive and impressive environments. Even though the polygon count in this specific part of the stage may not seem very high, it did not impact the impressive presentation of the graphics generated by the console. It's important to take a moment to appreciate the game running in wireframe mode. Here we observe the polygonal construction of the facility stage. Notice how the graphics are generated intelligently by the game. Polygons are generated and discarded as the player progresses through the environment. Even with intelligent polygon culling, the images stand out due to the high polygon density. There are variations between geometrically more and less complex areas. The act of the player opening one or more doors can significantly increase the polygon count. In terms of geometric complexity, the frigate stage is one of the most complex. At times, the game seems to render unnecessary polygons, which impacts its performance. Observe the game unnecessarily rendering polygons behind the walls. In this room on the ship, the high polygonal complexity of the game is evident. The polygon density is impressive. An example of intelligent polygon construction is seen in the bunker stage. As these images reveal, the game's polygon count is high, and the intelligent culling of polygons contributes to a complex, realistic, and immersive visual experience. Notice the attention to detail and the high use of polygons used to model the Goldeneye key. Let's appreciate more images of the game's polygon count. Here in Runway, we see another example of intelligent polygonal construction. The surface stage seems to have fewer polygons than the others. As you get closer to the antenna, the geometry becomes more complex. Silo is another stage built with many polygons. The polygon count is impressive for its high density. The same can be said about the archive stage. Some parts reveal very dense polygonal construction. Let's now look at the streets and train stages. And now the cave stage. Finally, the two special stages of the game reveal very dense geometries. Simply impressive, don't you think? By the developer's decision, many of the game's textures feature a grayscale color pattern. This decision, far from harming the game's performance, also contributed to the sobriety of its visuals. This choice made the game somewhat grayish, a fact that helped to reproduce militarized visuals with a focus on industrial constructions, all with a certain tone of both grandeur and decay. How can we forget the apocalyptic color of the Severnaya sky? Another smart decision by the developers was to use transparent textures in various game environments. In Frigate and Cradle, for example, the use of these textures greatly enhanced the perception of a higher polygon count than the actual count. The textures in general are amazing for a Nintendo 64 game. Notice, for example, the textures in the silo stage, which blend contrasts to simulate depth on surfaces, like a sort of normal map for that generation. Here are other examples of the game's impressive texturing. Another notable graphical aspect is the use of shadow textures in various stages of the game. Since the consoles of that generation did not have the power to project real shadows, the developers used so-called shadow textures in the game. Shadow textures consist of transparent textures placed over other textures to give the impression that the environment's geometry casts shadows on itself. Speaking of geometry, the game uses a technique called LOD, level of detail, for the characters in the game. This effect consists of modifying the complexity of the character models based on their distance from the player. With polygon savings, the developer was able to place many characters on the screen simultaneously, creating the effect of intense action against a large number of enemies. Although in some special cases, the frame rate drops due to the large number of enemies on the screen, no other game of that generation achieved the same result of having so many enemies on the screen at once. Let's look at some examples of crowding. Other aspects that contributed to the game's realism are the bullet marks on the walls and the empty shells falling as the player fires weapons. All very realistic for the time, don't you agree? In the next videos, we will cover the remaining aspects of the game. See you next time!